So recently on Facebook, I posted a couple of bracelets that I just finished, and they have a bead woven section in them. It's Peyote Stitch. This one is a Selene spiral, but I think if you're into bead weaving, like loom work would work, square stitch would work, peyote stitch, whether it's even count or odd count, would work. So anyways, I had a lot of fun doing it, and I wanted to do a few more of them, so I thought I'd film the process. So what I've done here is I have a couple of bead woven sections. I weave my, it's peyote, and I've used Fireline, 6-pound Fireline. And it does seem to survive the oven temperatures, but even if it didn't, it's held in place with translucent Liquid Sculpey. And so maybe just really quickly, this is the very first one I made, and I've been trying to take it apart. And in case you think that it's not going to stay on there very good, I have been using heavy duty knife and pulling, and it's stuck really good. So it doesn't seem to be any problem with that. So that I'll take apart later on. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and make one, and I thought I'd film it. So I'm going to work on this one, and I've decided to use this mix of green, which was just all kinds of scraps that I had. So it's quite a pretty bluish green color. And the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of give it a light texture for the underside. I mean, you could get fancier and put a pattern and stuff like that, but for these, I think all the attention is on the fronts of them, and that's good enough for me. So this is a strip done on the very thickest setting on my pasta machine, which on the Atlas is a 0. And I'm going to use Teresa's Salgato's Tiny Pandora bracelet kit. So I'm using the third largest. And I'll go ahead and cut a strip here. And I'm going to try a few different things on this one. I'm not going to do the same edging. The edging that I did on here was pretty fiddly, but it's based on Ludima Baculina's videos. She does a beautiful edging, and it's done with a threaded rod. Mine's not quite long enough, but anyways, and you roll it on the clay and then cut it. So what I've done that's a little differently, though, is I've cut myself a thin strip, and I mean, you could use an extruded string, would probably work even better. And then with a very thin layer of the threaded clay, I put it over top of the rolled strip and smoothed it out, and basically made a rope, which I applied to the bracelet. So you know, go ahead and try that if you want. It's not really all my technique to show, so I'm not going to show it. So I'm just going to cut a section here. I already know that this is going to be too long for what I need, but and as far as how long this goes, you're going to have to just test it out and see. On my wrist, it comes within an inch of the circumference of my wrist. It could be a little shorter. This one might end up being just a touch long, but I'll deal with that. Okay, so I'll move this out of the way. So I'm going to try a different kind of edging this time. Something I haven't tried before, so it should be interesting. And one end, I like to do my curve on one end already. I can't do the other end because I have to cut it to fit. So I debated about doing you know, the bead weaving part of it, but it would just take too long. And I understand that not everyone is actually going to do this, but the whole idea of it is just a further step from my last video, which was the Peyote bracelet, where I applied a strip of Peyote paint to the bracelet. So this is just kind of a logical conclusion to that. So I'm going to start that here and just wrap it around. So the bead weaving itself almost acts like a second layer of clay. It makes the bracelets really quite rigid, quite strong. And I didn't put, like this has no finish on it at all. I did buff the edges, and but there's no finish on the beadwork itself. So, because the one I'm taking apart, I had tried different things that I didn't like. I had tried resin and a few other things, and it's just not working very well. But yeah, that works good. So I'll just take this here and trim it up a bit. And smooth that out a bit, but I'll have time to work on those edges after. Okay, let's see what that beadwork's going to look like on it. I'm just going to dry fit it for now and see how far. Oh, that'll be fine. So I like to have it away from the base here, because I'm going to double this area up, and it's going to come up and actually catch the beadwork itself, and then it'll be thick enough to put my hole for a clasp on it. Oops. So once you're fairly happy with that, then put some liquid clay on it. And this is the thing that's really going to hold it in place. And then, like I say, I put a piece of clay to catch those edges, and it hides the the uneven beads. You know, you could probably fill that area with smaller beads if you didn't want to. You know, cover it and everything, but I want to make sure they stayed on good, so I covered them a little bit. But now that I'm trying to take that other one apart, I see that they really do stay on good. So really, it's not that critical. So if I cover that edge, it's only going to be just, you know, a couple beads worth. Okay, then get cloth to wipe your hands. And I'll put my strip on. Oops, sorry, my hands are still sticky. So this is slippery, so you're going to have a chance to adjust it however you like. Pull that end up, and you want to make sure it's nice and even. In a bit, so just kind of, you don't want it sort of baggy looking, because that will show. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So the other thing I did then is I ran a little tiny bead, and probably a brush would help me with this, but a little bead right on the edges. Of the liquid clay. And I don't really want it on the front of the beads. Okay, so I tried a couple things on here that didn't work, but I'm not going to show them to you. So let's try something a little simpler. So I've got some colors here, and I'm just going to cut some strips. And I want them fairly narrow, so I'm going to lay a ruler over top of my clay, and this is stuck pretty good to my glass cutting mat. And that's important because it'll move too much if it's not stuck really well. So I'll cut a piece there and another piece. That should be plenty of pieces. And that's scrap. Okay, so I was fiddling around with different colors and trying to find something I thought would work. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill in this area here. So I've got a piece that's rolled on, I'm going to roll it on a 4. So I'll just do that. So that's a medium thin, that's kind of the middle of my machine. And just cut some straight bits. And I want this just to catch that edge of the beadwork. But I'm going to cut it flush with the beadwork. And I'll put a piece on the other side. Again, just catching the beads. Okay, so now I'm going to cut a straight edge. Oops. Helps if you use the right side of the blade on one of these strips and lay it down, butting it up against the beadwork. And same on the other side. So the pieces that I had tried before that didn't work out was kind of a rough crackled edge, and while it was interesting, it was a little too rough. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that's well pushed in against the beadwork. And I just want to kind of round that edge up. Just with my thumb. And I can blend that. And if I don't get a good edge, which this isn't looking really great, I might put a strip of the original color in there to fill that. I'll see what it looks like after I round it up. Same on the other side. Push it in thoroughly as you're rounding it. Make sure those beads are all pushed in place too. Because once it's baked, it won't move, so you won't be adjusting it afterwards. Okay. So you can use a rubber tool to sort of blend those edges. But I think the best thing would be to put an extra strip on. But I'll do that in a bit. Okay, so I just want to kind of add a little detailing to the end. So I'll put a little bit of a blue stripe in there. Just to sort of help with that transition of it rising up over top of the beadwork. Okay, I'm going to spend a bit of time smoothing this out, because if I can avoid putting an extra strip in there, I will. So I will be back when that's all smooth. So I'm back, and I would say I spent a good 15 minutes, if not more, smoothing this out, first with my fingers and then with this triangular spatula type metal tool. You can find these at hobby type stores or Harbor Freight, or in Canada we have Princess Auto. They sell a smaller version of that. Oops. So I'm just going to double check and make sure that my beadwork is nice and flat, and put a hole in there for jump ring. Okay, I'll clean Clean that out. It's a little crooked, so now's the time to straighten it. Okay, then take a look at it really carefully. Make sure it's just the way you want it to be. And I bake it for an hour, for sure. Actually, I'm baking it a little bit longer than that now. And cover it with metal, like a baking tin type of thing, and make sure that your oven is reaching the proper temperature. And that's pretty much it. You can varnish it, the parts of the clay, if you want to. You could sand it, polish it. Just stay away from the beadwork, and it should be fine. So I'll be back with just a photo, or maybe I'll put the photo at the beginning when this is all finished. And I hope you enjoyed that. It's kind of a different kind of an idea. Anyways, I'll see you again next time. Bye. Just one thing real quick. From handling it, your bracelet can get pretty dirty. So the last thing I'm going to do, I just sprayed a little bit of alcohol on there. That's 99% alcohol, and on a baby wipe, and I'm just going to wipe off all my edges, and that will also smooth the clay a little bit and make it look a lot nicer. So I'll just do that before I bake it. And you'll see that makes a big difference. So most bead finishes you don't really have to worry about if you touch it with the alcohol. I wouldn't go rubbing it hard, but it should be all right. So that's much better. So that's it. See you next time. Bye.